Hi, Lewis. Steve Wozniak here. I do a lot of cameos, but this one has really gotten to me, really affected me emotionally. I've read a lot of articles about the right to repair issue, but I am so busy with so many other things in my life that I haven't really gotten involved in that area. But I'm always totally supportive, and I totally think the people behind it are doing the right thing. I have now subscribed to your YouTube channel as well. It's that meaningful to me. We wouldn't have had an Apple had I not grown up in a very open technology world, an open electronics world. You could learn electronics at a very young age. I had a ham radio license at 10 years old when you had to build your own radios, every single part of them, transmitter and receiver. And back then, when you bought electronic things like TVs and radios, every bit of the circuits and designs were included on paper, total open source. Someone with skill could get in and modify things to fix broken radios or televisions, or to improve them, or to even replace destroyed parts. Way back then, when I grew up, instead of chips, these products were made with vacuum tubes that are like electric glowing light bulbs. And when a TV or radio went bad, it was probably a tube that went bad. So you'd unscrew the back and you'd pull out all the tubes, maybe 5 tubes, maybe a television would have 10 tubes or so. And you'd know that one tube was likely to be bad. And even non-technical family members could pull out the tubes, and you'd put them in a bag, paper bag, and you'd take them down to a local electronics store or even to the grocery store. It was that common. And then you'd find a tube tester, and you'd look at a tube, each individual tube, you'd look at it. It might have a part number like 12SA7, and then you'd look on a tube up on the tube tester, and it would say, oh, slot 25. So you'd plug it into slot 25 and press a button for a little while, and within a few seconds, a meter would go to red for bad or green to blue. And if it was bad, you'd buy a brand new 12SA7 tube to take home for your radio or television. Everyone did this all the time back then. And it made us feel good about being able to fix our things when they went bad. I don't know. You just feel good about it. If your TV went really bad, you might have to take it to a local TV repair shop, which every town had TV repair shops. And I myself, had taken electronics. I understood all the circuits inside of televisions, both black and white and color. And I could fix them with my own equipment even. I was qualified to be a TV repairman. I was qualified as a TV engineer, really. When starting Apple, I could never afford a teletype for input and output. You type on this big machine, heavy machine, like you see in movies, and they cost as much as 2 cars. I could never afford one, so I didn't have any input and output possibilities, even though I had taught myself to design computers, and I wanted so badly to figure out how to build a computer that was usable. And to be usable, it's got to have an input and an output. Well, I owned a television, right? Everyone owned a TV, and I knew how the signals worked. But I was a TV engineer, but I was also a digital design engineer. And digital design, I could use very few parts. I was very good at that, to get all the signals out at the right time to show up as balls and paddles on my TV. So I could put the signals into the right place in the TV set. I'd look at its open source schematic, and I'd probe around with test equipment and find, yes, this is the place you put video signals in. And I sent in a little video signal, so I was able to build some arcade game projects like Pong. I did Breakout. I designed Breakout for Atari. I had an early ARPANET terminal back when there were 6 computers on the ARPANET. Now we got billions. It's called the internet. And I also have built what became the Apple I, and I could feed my signal into it. And I had my own TV, which I already owned, as an output device. I didn't have to afford something I could never afford. So I wasn't restricted, from anything that kept me really from building that computer and showing the world the future of computers, personal computers, is going to be a keyboard and a TV. Back then, and that all came from, this Basically, this whole being able to repair things and modify them and tap into them yourself. There were no video in jacks on a TV back then. The phone company, though, was a monopoly then, Ma Bell. You were not allowed to touch the telephone lines in your home with anything electronic. Okay, nobody was allowed to manufacture a telephone or answering machine, even though they could build much better ones than Ma Bell. Ma Bell would have these crude ones, sometimes dial only. They got up to, the time we started Apple, they were up to touch tone. Beep, 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 beep. And nobody could manufacture them. You'd have to buy it in black. You wouldn't even get a choice of color. Can you believe that? No answer machines, only the ones sent to the theaters that cost a fortune. You could only lease one model of phone or answer machine from Ma Bell. That was changing around the time we started Apple. Big antitrust suit got settled, and now companies were allowed to build stuff that connected to the electrical specs, the standards of Ma Bell. And look at how many phones, before cell phones, took away everything. Look how many phones you could buy and answering machines at all the stores, and so many choices you had that you never had in the past with the monopoly. Anyway, engineers, design their circuits, their televisions in the old days, radios, computers now, with specs and connections, or parts meeting those connections, meeting those specs will work fine. Parts meeting those specs will work fine. Sometimes we bring one out on a little jack and say you can plug an earphone in and it will work. And, but you don't get a lot of choice about really all the options you're allowed to do, but you're pretty much allowed some choice there. The thing is, if there's a part inside and you want to substitute a different part that you can get, maybe cheaper, it's not going to blow things up if it meets the specs. That's what engineering's all about. And it worked fine. So if if you destroyed a product, you're trying to replace a part and you destroy the product, well, yeah, that's your tough luck. You lost your product. But, if you know what you're doing and you're doing certain steps that others have solved and found that, work pretty well, you can repair a lot of things at low cost, but it's even more precious to know that you did it yourself, So why stop them? Why stop the self-repair community? Why stop the right to repair people? Look at the Apple II. It's shipped with full schematics, designs, and software source listings, code listings, totally open source. The Apple II was modifiable and extendable to the maximum. People figured out how to convert the early display into having lowercase characters and stuff with their own hardware added. This product was the only source of profits for Apple for the first 10 years of the company. This was not a minor product, and it was not that successful on pure luck. There were a lot of good things about that being so open that everyone could join the party. That movie, The Beautiful Mind. Sometimes when companies cooperate together with others, they can actually have better business than if they're totally protective and monopolistic and not working with others, just totally competitive. Anyway, how is Apple hurt by the openness of the Apple II, I wonder? More than what's right and what's wrong, that aspect of self-repair is also the motivation and joy of just technical people wanting to grow up technical, knowing how to write the right kind of software and develop the right kind of hardware, like doing these things just to prove to themselves they've got a little special skill in the world and they can show it off to others. Very motivating for creative minds. Believe me, that's how I grew up. Anyway, it's time to recognize the right to repair more fully. I believe that companies inhibit it because it gives the companies power, control, over everything. And I guess in a lot of people's minds, power over others equates to money and profits. Hey, is it your computer or is it some company's computer? Think about that. It's time to start doing the right things.